Now, the holidays are over for many pupils around the country. The academic year was delayed due to an increase of COVID-19 cases. Well, the Basic Education Department says it's ready for 2021, but there are still concerns that some pupils are still waiting for space in school. To discuss this even further, we're now joined by the University of Johannesburg's Professor Metlcalfe. Thank you so much for your time, Prof, and good morning to you. Your overview, I suppose, firstly, before we get into some of the concerns and some of the, advantages and the good deeds that the department has done, but your overall overview of what the minister had to say yesterday.
I think that it's been clear that a huge amount of work has been done by all of the 9 provinces in preparing the minister for this briefing. The start of the 2021 school year is, of course, exciting for all of the learners, for the grade 1s, for the grade 8s in particular. But under the conditions of COVID, it makes it so much more complex. Readiness isn't just being ready to teach, but it's also being ready to administer all of the necessary processes so that schools are safe for learners and teachers.
Now, and speaking of which, that seemed to be the theme for the minister just yesterday, right, that they had to balance between health and safety, and I suppose commencing with the academic year and filling in those gaps, really, with which the pandemic has affected. So let's talk about that. When the minister mentioned that there are over 16,000, learners that, still needed admission, and particularly the grade 1s and grade 8s seem to be facing challenges. What consequences should the department expect if this is not remedied soon?
Well, firstly, we as South Africa made a decision to say that education is compulsory for all learners between the grades of grade 1 and grade 9, or between the ages of 7 and 15. Once you make education compulsory, you have an obligation as the state to ensure that you have places for all learners. So this is a challenge not just for families, but it's a challenge for the state. Now, we need to understand what are the factors that give rise to learners not being admitted. To build schools where they're required is a planning process. And in some provinces where you have movements into the province or between provinces and unexpected increases in the number of children over the year before the start of the next academic year, you can have real challenges. But I'm puzzled at some of these figures. I don't understand how it can be that so many grade 8s, which is 16,000 in the country, and in some provinces such as Limpopo, it's 3,000. We need to understand what are the planning failures. Could they have been anticipated? Or is this simply parents who wish their child to go to school in an area that they regard as having better schooling, and in fact there may be vacant places in schools around them. The challenge then for the state is to make sure that all of our schools are functioning at a level that parents are pleased and satisfied to send their children to the school, preferably in their local community.
But, Prof, it seems the entire value chain here is affected, not just the pupils. When we talk about teachers, the minister making mention that, over just 1,000 teachers had lost their lives due to COVID, and some may not necessarily be, teachers, but they're part of, the school staff. So, with that being said, what are some of the lessons that you rather think the department needs to take and learn from last year so that this year could be more of a preventative tool rather than a reactionary one?
I very much like the line that schools can be a barrier to infection. That if we have schools that are well managed, where the daily laborious routine of making sure that all surfaces are sanitized, that distances between learners are respected, and we have 1.5 to 2 meters, 1 to 1.5 meters, that all learners wear masks all of the time in the classroom situation, then we will be able to make sure that that routine way of behaving and protecting self and others is as safe as you could be anywhere else, safer than being in an uncontrolled environment out on the street or at the shops. Let's make schools safe for teachers and safe for learners. Let's know that school is probably a safer place to be than many other places during the pandemic. So that requires schools have the necessary resources, the necessary systems, and that there is a vigilance about protecting self and others in the school situation.